It's our first visit with Ron Paul of 2013. He is now the former congressman. The first time I interviewed him, he was running for Congress again, I guess back in 95, 96. And he'd been in Congress once before as a libertarian. And, of course, went back as a Republican. And he has been our greatest defender of liberty, worldwide loved and admired. He's got big announcements coming up soon. I've heard the rumors, and I'll see if he'll give us any hint. But he joins us, obviously, to talk about the fiscal cliff that he said we've already gone over a long time ago. What's happening with that? The Sandy Hook shooting, the announcements of the NSA openly spying on us. It's like everything Ron Paul talked about 15 years ago and got called a conspiracy theorist is now just out in the open. And former congressman and really omnibudsman of liberty worldwide, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Good to be with you.
Did you have a good Christmas?
Yep, very good. Family got here. We had a lot of fun and didn't solve any world problems.
I wish I need to learn how to unplug as well. Wow, you heard what I threw out there, sir. Where would you like to start first?
Well, the things that I've talked about is mostly, the general, deterioration of our individual freedoms and our liberties in our markets. But I think the big thing as I wound down my career dealt with, financial and the economy. And I think both major parties and most members of Congress are in total denial as to what the real problem is, because they think it's just a budget. If we change this number, raise taxes, cut spending, pretend to cut spending, we solve the problem. And I think it's much bigger than that. I think, first off, the country is bankrupt. We're insolvent. We can't pay the bills, and they won't admit it. I mean, we have these obligations of $220 trillion in national debt, of $16 trillion. We're the biggest foreign debtor nation ever. And that is ignored, and they talk about, what they're going to do with tinkering with the tax code, and they talk about cuts, which aren't cuts. It's just all deceit and trying to fool the people into believing that they can tinker with a budget. But I think the problem is government is too big. They don't follow the Constitution. They don't know what the rule of government ought to be in a free society, and they don't admit we're bankrupt. And oftentimes I've used this saying that, are we going to go over the cliff? Well, in many ways, we're over the cliff in that we're not going to retrace ourselves. If you're over a cliff, you just don't have a chance to climb back up. And we really don't. We're not going to have enough people in Congress in the next go-around, or do we have them now? We have better people now, and we're going to have some people speaking for us. But we can't go back and all of a sudden balance our budget, remove the regulations, and protect our liberties. All we have to do is listen to our president, what his plans are. But the Republicans aren't, doing a whole lot more, because we're facing a situation where it took 100 years for our governments and our schools to indoctrinate our people to accepting the idea that the role of government ought to be to take care of us and provide perfect safety and make sure nobody falls through, the net, and take care of people and the whole world. And I think we have to address the subject, what should the role of government be? The founders made an attempt at it. They wrote a constitution. We don't obey it. And to me, if we would accept the notion that the role of government is to protect our freedoms, provide some national defense for us, provide a sound currency, and protect our liberties, there would be no warfare state and there would be no welfare state. And nobody wants to address that. And all this talk, neither Republicans or Democrats would even suggest about cutting the militarism. The only talk was, should we increase the military expenditures by 18% or 20%? The people who wanted 18% were castigated for slashing national defense and said they were, unpatriotic. So that is where the mess is. I see the mess that we're in, a problem of education, a consequence of 100 years of control of many generations,
Sure.
indoctrinating them into bad economic policy and bad foreign policy.
Congressman, you've talked about globalism, the Bilderberg Group, people like that, but it's now in the Financial Times of London. It's in hundreds of papers. In fact, we can probably pull some up and put them on screen, where they announce global government by the 6 mega banks. And I listened to Bloomberg Financial on XM, And they brag that they've conquered Europe with debt. They've signed the Europeans onto derivatives. They've got them dependent on socialism. But most of the debt is actually the central bank's debt that are really private. And now I see them wrecking us, Congressman, on purpose to make us debt slaves while also making us dependent. I mean, surely they know the facts. Even the Congressional Budget Office, as you know, 3 or 4 years ago said we were bankrupt. All these other government economists have admitted this. So you're not just somebody who studied economics. You're also a medical doctor. It's kind of like a patient that's got cancer all over their body. This is already a done deal. So what's your take on my statement that we've been maneuvered into rack and ruin by loan sharks? I mean, I think it's important to not just say there are a bunch of buffoons in D.C. Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, and others, in my research, are just mafia organizations that want us as basically debt slaves on a sharecropping plantation.
I think it's partially true, but it also involves indoctrination through education. It's just not 10 or 15 people who get together and all of a sudden they can change people's minds. People endorse Keynesianism. They endorse the Federal Reserve. They endorse us being the policemen of the world and that we should have these wars in the Middle East. So they have been indoctrinated. And yes, there are a few who are going to benefit. But, you know, I can't read into their minds. I don't know. They sit back and say, you know what, we're going to bankrupt the country and cause this chaos. I think they try to get away with manipulating and maneuvering and benefiting themselves both with power and money. And philosophically, it doesn't work out, so they have to react. So they take advantage of it. It's sort of like taking advantage. Don't let a major crisis go to waste. I mean, they create the problems. They think they're going to get away with it, and then when the crisis hits, they make use of it, and they say, "Well, we have to do." They're motivated by money and power, and they have to have control.
Sure,
of politics.
sure. I'm talking about.
I don't think they're smart enough to, on a daily basis, say, "Well, we're going to do A and B is going to be results." I think there are mostly unintended consequences that occur, and they react. I'd like to get people to react differently.
I agree with you that at the mid-level and even the upper levels, obviously, it's just a corrupt system people have been born into now. But I'm talking about the 112-point plan that got leaked out of the World Bank when Joseph Stiglitz resigned, the Nobel Prize winner in economics, in 2002. It talked about how they manipulated third world countries into bankruptcy to take control, and it discussed doing it to the West. So at Bilderberg, from our sources, but also at Davos, I've got Herman von Rompuy, head of the EU, saying we're going to use the financial crisis to bring in the New World Order.
Well, that may be, and I don't know every individual who makes these plans, but I do know that I meet a lot of people who believe. I mean, you take a guy like Bernanke. I think Bernanke actually believes that junk. You know, I think he really believes that he's been sent here by the Creator to make sure we never have a Great Depression before because they didn't print the money fast enough. I don't think he sits and says, and goes much further than this, because he has invested a lifetime into proving this ideology. I think he's wrong. He's determined to prove he's right. So he creates trillions and trillions of dollars. And then these people that you're talking about, they know what's going on, and they line up, and they get involved, and they learn how to manipulate the system for political reasons. So we know that
there's different factions.
Our president has an agenda, and it's very, very clear. So he works his agenda with the system that exists. I
agree with you. There's different factions who only care about themselves, and together the perfect storm. But you're saying he thinks he's right, you think you're right. Sir, I watched a speech that's in our film Matrix of Evil you gave in 2003 at McKinney Ruff's right outside Austin, here in South Austin, and you laid out everything that was going to happen, how they'd use the drones here, how they'd have the NSA spy on us, how they would use the Patriot Act on the citizens, how when they collapse things, they would use that to take full control, how the derivatives bubble would work. I mean, it's like you're a prophet, but you're not. You were in there in the committees. You've studied history. You know what was going to happen. You said the stimulus wouldn't work. You said all these things wouldn't work. You said that the Republicans would vote to raise taxes. $1 of cuts for every 41 in spending increases. 77% of Americans with tax increases on payroll. I mean, it's like the lying. And what's happened is we've been eased into this tyranny, and so now you're here saying, well, we'll see who's going to be proven right. You've been proven right, Congressman. Toot your own horn.
Yeah. Well, I will keep tooting my horn about what I believe in, because I think there are those who do exactly what you're talking about. I remember very clearly George Bush Sr., when the WTO came in, and you say that now so much of these plans are out in the open, and I think George Bush put them out in the open when he said, I saw a major ad, I think it was in the New York Times or something, that we put on the third leg of the New World Order. Before that, you couldn't say New World Order out loud, or you were a complete idiot or a nut job. But he put it out, and he says, we have it. Now we have the WTO, we have the IMF, and we have the World Bank. And I think, yes, but they have a philosophic belief that world government is good. And some of them believe it because they think world government, just like world communism, is good. And some people who joined communism, they were sincere. They thought it was good. But others are driven by power. They're driven by wealth and control, and they're psychopathic, and they want to use force against people. So I think they feed on each other is what I think happens. But I think but all governments reflect popular opinion. And
no, I agree with you. I've heard you say over and over again, this is happening because we become lazy, decadent slobs. I work some days 18 hours a day, but I'll be honest. Compared to my dad or somebody like his dad who grew up on farms, they enjoy working. They can fix anything. My dad, I call him at 3 in the morning and he'll come help me. And I worry because, I'm a shadow of my dad. He's a shadow of his dad. I'm not teaching my kids to work that hard. Like I think we really are degenerating. And I'm not romanticizing old timers. I just know that people used to be closer to the ground, more street smart, and harder working, more independent, and not as decadent. And there is a feedback loop of decadence now that's almost impossible to escape.
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about. Would agree with you to a great deal, but also look for the positive things, because if I look at the young people that come out for my rallies, I see young people who are very dedicated, they're very principled, they're idealistic, and they're not decadent when it comes to computers and the internet. They're pretty darn smart. And I don't know the technology, but I know how valuable it is, and I'm able to use it and get other people to help me. So in that sense, I become the optimist, because technology so far in most of all of history has always been used to enhance the power of the state and to kill people,
Yes, sir.
This is one time, if we're smart enough, that we ought to be able to use this technology and spread information. You do it all the time. You know about the technology. We're spreading this message. So I get to be optimistic that all we have to do is continue this. And that is why in my farewell speech, the most dangerous trend that we have to stop is the threat to our civil liberties, our ability to resist. What are these people, how many people are going to be arrested, and put in secret prisons, and how often are we going to be able to maintain our First Amendment rights and our Second Amendment rights? It's the protection of civil liberties that's most important. But the best way to do is awaken a generation, and we have the tool, and it's the internet, and we have a very responsive young group, and what happens to the establishments, they beat this out of us. They do it with every generation to make you feel like you're a bad guy because you think freedom is good. Now, our job, and we have these tools, is to make sure that this whole new generation knows that freedom, their instincts are right. We're all natural believers in liberty. We're all libertarian in the sense that we want to be left alone, but it's beaten out of us by our system, the movies, the schools, the government, all of these things. So I see a tremendous opportunity, and I hope I'm not totally deceiving myself, but I'll keep working with the assumption that we can change people's minds.
Yes, sir.